G'day, and welcome to installing SQL Server and SQL Server Management Studio. I'll refrain from using a version number, though this will be 2019 of SQL Server, but the instructions will match for a variety of SQL servers. Also, be aware my production values aren't as high as I would like them. Lighting might be a little weird on my face because I haven't got all my lighting set up in the Tacoma studio yet, but should be good enough for my students to use tonight and further through to get stuff installed. So let's get going. I made a virtual machine with Windows 10 in order to do this on, so I'll just walk you through the process. So I'll go down here and bring up my virtual machine. So this is basically Windows 10. There's nothing fancy installed other than Firefox and Notepad++, and all patches as of the 30th of, I believe, April. Other than that, I have downloaded the installers already for us, so we do not have to download them, but I'm still going to show you where they are, and I will put links in the description of this YouTube video as well, so you can just follow those links. So let me bring up Firefox here for you real quick. And the first place you want to go is to install SQL Server itself. We click on SQL Server Downloads right there. Now, if I go to SQL Server Downloads, you will actually find a variety of different downloads. What you want to do is you want to scroll that mouse down a little bit. Scroll, and then you'll see Developer. Click on that link, and that will take you to the developer version of SQL Server download. When you click that, it will save that file into wherever you have your downloads to save. This will be Windows only. At this time, I am not going to do a Linux, nor am I going to do a Mac OS X install, though I have plans to do that in the near future. OS X's install is a Docker install, so I want to make sure I test that so I can get it squared away for you. The Linux install is pretty straightforward, but the OS X install can be interesting, so I'll get around to that later. Right now, I want Windows first. So anyway, you click on this, it'll download it to your downloads directory or wherever. It's a small file. You do not need to download Management Studio immediately. They will give you a link to download it after you've installed the server. But if you want to go directly to its download page, here is the download page. Again, there will be a link in the description of this video for you. If you scroll down, you will see here, Download SQL Server Management Studio. This updates its version quite often. So again, I'm trying to refrain from using version numbers since the version numbers in Microsoft products do tend to change pretty often. So keep it simple. Anyway, this is a much larger install. This install is nearly 500 megabytes, maybe even a little bit more. So just FYI, make sure you got plenty of time if your internet isn't that fast to download it, etc. But it's not hard. It'll download and it'll install it to the download directory just fine for you. So we can close the browser now. We don't need the browser anymore. And if I bring up my File Explorer and go to my Downloads directory, you should see, or wherever you have the download saved to, SQL Server 2019, SQL 2019, SSCI, so this is basically telling the version, dev. Just double-click that icon. Don't do SSMS yet. Do the SQL 2019 first. If you have user account control active, click yes. Hopefully you do. Normally I have mine set, so I have to put in the actual password. But on this is a virtual machine, so there's no need to make it be that secure. So the first window you'll see when you bring this up is, what do you want to install? What's your type of installation? For my classes and almost all the tutorials that I ever will do on YouTube, Basic is just fine. Developer Edition is free. Basic is free. It covers most of the things that you would ever need to use. There are some extra things that you could install, but for now, just click Basic. When you click Basic, you will get the license. You know I'm supposed to tell you to read through all that stuff, but I also know that most people never do. I do teach security, so you know I'm supposed to tell you to read all that, but I know people don't. Click on Accept, please. Then, if you wish to put SQL Server in a different location, you can. for this tutorial, just leave it in the stock location. That's perfectly reasonable. You can just put it in the stock and it's fine. If you want to put it somewhere else, you can. Make sure it's on a fairly fast hard drive though. But it's fine to put it in stock for us. Click Install. And SQL will begin installing. Now, it's going to have to download some stuff in order to do this. The download that you made was basically just downloading the installer. That was actually not downloading all the files that it needs to have. So it runs a rules engine first in order to figure out what all it needs to download. Once it has ascertained this, it will begin to download the files for you. And as you can see, it's a 1.4 gigabyte download in my case. Be aware that the download speed is going to vary. Last night it was doing it at 280. Today, as you can see, it's starting to get over 100, so it's not a horribly long amount of time, but it's not particularly a short download if you don't have a fast internet connection. So what I'm going to do is I'll edit this in post just to jump straight to the end of this so you don't have to listen to me jibber jabber at you, though we are almost done. Okay, so it has completed its download on my box. It took not very long, maybe a minute and a half, I don't know, by the time I said stop, but I was going to stop editing and post, etc. So anyway, once it does that, it has now got its information that it needs, so it will begin the install process. This again will take a little bit of time. There isn't anything you need to do. It should not have to ask you any questions. It will just go about its business. I have had errors twice in all the time that I've worked with this type of thing. This type of installer. One is it runs out of space. This can happen on a virtual machine, so that could be a problem. Two, every once in a great while, I've actually run into a problem security-wise. This usually is dealt with before this point occurs, but I have actually had it happen a couple times. I doubt if you've gotten this far you would see that. I've only seen it happen a couple times, and it was pretty tweaky installs on some machines that I wasn't in charge of, etc. So there was some wacky stuff going on there. Anyway, in order so you don't have to listen to me jibber jabber for another few minutes while it does this, I am going to edit this out in post so it goes much quicker. All right, so it looks like it finished. It depends on your machine and how fast it is. I've seen it be done in basically a couple minutes, 2 or 3. I've seen other machines take 20 minutes. It just depends, especially since it's got to download stuff. You know, it's got to download things and then it's got to do a whole bunch of scripts. Bottom line is, though, once you see this, should have completed successfully, especially since it says so. Notice that it's giving you some information there about directories. You might want to remember those because those are basically directories relevant to the installation, but you don't necessarily have to. Now, one thing you might notice is that install SSMS link. I put my mouse over it so it'll highlight for us. That is the link I was telling you about that will take you out and go grab Management Studio and allow you to download it from that website page. We have already done that, so in this case we can just click close because I've already done the download. I don't need to go there and get it. It'll ask if you want to exit. Click yes. And the thing you'll have to download from the other page is this right here. So just double click on that once it gets downloaded. And you'll notice that it says SSMS setup because that is the Management Studio. This is the tool that we're going to use to connect to and run our commands and basically manage SQL Server. So click yes when it asks for your permissions. Yeah, you have to do this. In order to use SQL Server, you have to have something to communicate with it. And if you don't, it'll just run as a service. But there will be no front end for it. There will be no human interactivity with it, really. So Management Studio is what we use from Microsoft to basically interact with the server. There are other tools that will do this. It's just this is the one that we use for my classes and we'll generally use for my tutorials here on YouTube. So that's why I'm choosing this. Again, you don't need to change anything here. Everything looks good. And that's it. Just click install. Now again, this is going to take some time to install, so once again I am going to edit this in post so that you don't have to sit, or I don't have to regale you with stories for the next 5-10 minutes while it's installing. Even though it might be fun, but I'm going to save you from that at this time. So I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so we're on the other side, and it requires a restart. So click the button that says restart. It will not always require a restart. I actually have installed this on boxes that do not require a restart. Though lately it seems like every time I've done it, it does require that. So we're on a virtual machine. It'll take a little bit of time for the virtual machine to start itself back up again. As you can see, nothing too crazy. Again, I'll see you on the other side. And there we are. Windows has started back up again. Let's go log in. You can send emails to that email address, but I doubt I ever will receive them, so I wouldn't do that if I were you. But I wouldn't leave an email address that's secret out in the open like that. So yes, I expect spam to hit that. I would not use that email address to contact me. If I would use YouTube for now. Maybe one day I'll set it up so you can have an email address for that, but don't try it here. Okay, that's it. The SQL Server and Management Studio is now installed. As you can see, it doesn't tell you it is. So I don't consider an install complete until we've actually tested to make sure it works. So let's go do that real quick. So once you're back at your desktop, just press the Windows key. And you should see under Recently Added, I hope, Microsoft SQL Server Management, blah, blah, blah. Be aware you can also type in SSM. By typing SSM after you've hit that window key, that will basically search your programs and other things in order to find a match. In this case, it should quite easily find, as you can see, SQL Server Management Studio 18. Once that's highlighted like that, just press Enter. And the Management Studio should start. Now, the first run of this program will take a little bit of time to run. So give it a couple seconds, a couple minutes sometimes. Especially if you have a lot of stuff going on your desktop. I've actually seen this take a good 2 to 5 minutes. So I'm going to, if it does take too long, I'll edit this out in post as well. All right, we're back. Look at that. So you'll see there that you've got a connect to server dialog. As you can see, the server type is database engine. That is what you wish to connect to. If I drop that box down, you'll see that there's actually several things that you can connect to, but in this case, database engine is fine. The server name is highlighted there, or is there in the text box. Be aware, normally I rename my machine so it doesn't have that kind of awkward name to it, but it's all up to you. You can use other ways to connect to SQL Server too, but in this case, we'll just leave it alone. That's the stock. And then you've got Windows authentication. And in this case, I haven't done anything fancy. I just typed in a basic username to start up the virtual machine. So we don't need to change anything there either. So basically, everything here should be just fine. One thing, if this is blank, that generally means that it cannot find the server on your machine. And the most common cause of that when you're doing these installs is you installed Management Studio before you installed SQL Server. Not saying that is what happened to you, but that's a very common thing. Or if the SQL Server, for whatever reason, refused to start when the machine rebooted. That's a topic for another day. But if it is blank, you might just try rebooting your machine and see if it comes back with the value in there. If it is blank and you know for sure the SQL Server is running, you can just type server name in there, localhost, LOCALHOST. localhost, one word, all lowercase. And that will or should connect directly to the SQL Server. But in this case, just leave it alone. You should be fine. Click Connect. And it'll take a couple seconds. But it should then connect to the SQL Server that is running on your machine. And you should see Object Explorer populate with some infos. If I scooch over here, this window, you'll actually see the name of the machine, what version of the SQL Server that's being used, and the user, in your case, you, hopefully, that is connected. Now, this isn't a SQL tutorial or anything, but just because we connect doesn't necessarily mean it's all working squared away, eh? So let's run a query and see if we can at least run a query against this sucker. So just go up here to where it says New Query and click on that button for me. And that will open up a query window so we can enter a command for SQL Server to follow. I'll kick up my font size so it's easier for you to read. So we're going to do about the simplest thing you can do on a SQL Server. We're just going to ask it what version it's running. So just say select, just type in select at version, then a semicolon, press enter, and type GO. Press enter, and you may either click execute or press the F5 key. Either one of those will execute the command. And in this case, if the SQL Server worked and everything's running as it should be, hopefully you should see the actual version number come back. And if that's the case, you're successful. And we're good to go. So, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you enjoy this kind of content, I do plan on continuing this mission. I've been threatening for a couple years to do a YouTube channel where I do a bunch of tutorials and videos. And I am not going to threaten anymore. I'm actually going to do it. If you would like to see more of these videos, please make sure that you like and that you subscribe, because subscribing is really important for those of us that are making videos so that we can start to get some money out of it so that we can get it monetized. I will also have a link to my Patreon page if you would like to fund a little bit with Patreon. Hey, $1 a month or something is all I ask. If you want to pay more, that's fine. But hey, I'll take what I can get, right? But yeah, I do really want to just start doing this for a living, and I've been threatening to do it for a couple years. But with the COVID, with COVID and Corona-chan doing stuff, it's time to start doing the YouTube stuff again. So, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again.